today's tutorial, you're going to need 2 colors of weight for yarn, and I'm going to refer to my white color as yarn A and my pink color as yarn B, so please keep that in mind. Also, you will need a 4mm crochet hook along with a darning needle, 2 stitch markers, and finally a pair of scissors. And for reference, I'll be using this white yarn from Red Heart Super Saver, and this yarn is from Joann's Big Twist acrylic yarn. And I totally forgot to mention here that I use about 35 grams of yarn A and 15 grams of yarn B. To get started, take your color A and your 4mm hook, form a slip knot, and attach it to your hook. From this point, chain 11, so yarn over, pull it through the loop on your hook, and that is a chain. So repeat until you have 11 total. Once you finish your 11 chains, look for the second loop from your hook. So you're going to skip this first one, and into the second loop you're going to insert a single crochet. So insert your hook, yarn over, pull through the loop, and then yarn over, pull through the 2 loops on your hook. Now continue single crocheting until you reach the end of your row. Once you reach your last chain, you're going to chain 1 and then turn your work to the other side. And right now we're going to work on this ribbing part right here, and the technique for this is back loop single crochet. And what this means is that you're going to single crochet only on this second loop here. Instead of inserting your hook like this, like we would normally, we're going to insert our hook into the second loop, the first stitch like this, and then single crochet. Again, insert your hook into the middle of the V and only insert it into the second loop, and then yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. Now repeat this until you reach the end of your row. Since we're at the end of our row, we're going to chain 1 and chain 1 after every single row. You're going to repeat this pattern of back loop only single crochet and chaining 1 at the end of every row until you reach a desired length that fits comfortably around your wrist. And of course, this is going to be different for everyone, but I'm going to be doing 31 rows of this back loop only single crochet method. So I finished my 31 rows, and what I'm going to do next is to attach the 2 ends together. So in order to do so, chain 1 and put the 2 ends together and match the stitches together like this. And you're going to insert your hook into the front loop only into this first panel. So insert your hook into only this first loop from the front and into the middle like this. And then into the back panel, you're just going to insert it normally. So I'm just going to insert it into the back stitch like this. And then you're just going to single crochet. Again, you're going to insert your hook into the front loop only for this first panel. And then into the second panel, insert your hook normally into both loops. And then single crochet to connect the 2 panels together. So repeat this process until you reach the end of your row. So once you are done, you're just going to chain 1 and fasten off. So that is it for the bottom ribbing. And since we have this part that's kind of sticking out because of our connecting stitch, just flip your work inside out so that the front side is facing the outside. Now we're going to start making this spiral piece, and we're going to need both yarn A and yarn B. So take your yarn A and form a slip knot and attach it to your hook and chain 4. Into the first chain, you're going to slip stitch by inserting your hook, yarning over, pulling through that loop, and also the loop on your hook, And this might be a little bit hard to see, but there should be a hole in the middle of your chains, so right here. And you're just going to insert 4 half double crochets into that space in the middle. So to half double crochet, you're just going to yarn over and then insert your hook into the middle there, yarn over, and then pull through the middle, and then yarn over, pull through 3. Again, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through the middle, and then yarn over, pull through 3. Now repeat this process 2 more times. After your 4th half double crochet, you're going to extend your hook like this to kind of pull the loop outwards, and you're just going to keep it like this. Now take your yarn B and attach a slip knot to your hook, and insert your hook into the middle here, and you're going to slip knot to connect yarn B to the middle here, like so, and pull on the tail just a little bit to tighten the knot. And you're going to insert 4 half double crochets into the middle. So at this point, we're going to start using our stitch marker. What we're going to do next is increase in each of the 4 stitches from yarn A. So you're going to half double crochet into the first stitch of yarn A, and after that first stitch, you're going to take your stitch marker and mark that stitch. Now since we're increasing, we're just going to insert another half double crochet in that same exact stitch. Now in the next stitch, we're going to increase again by inserting 2 half double crochets in the same stitch. And now do the same for the next 2 stitches. So now we've reached our yarn A. So we're just going to, just like we did for yarn A, pull our yarn like this and go back to our yarn A here and pull on our working yarn and connect it to our hook. Now this part may be a little bit tricky, so we're going to do the exact same thing that we just did with yarn B, which is to do an increase in each of the next 4 stitches of the opposite color. So take your working yarn and insert a half double crochet into the first stitch, and I recommend counting from your stitch marker. So 1, 2, 3, 4 into that 4th stitch, half double crochet, and again do another half double crochet in the same stitch. And in the next 3 stitches, do the same thing. Every time you reach a stitch marker, you're going to stop stitching in the stitch right before the stitch that is marking. And now we're going to extend our yarn again and go back to our yarn B and insert our hook into that large loop and pull on our working yarn. For our second round, we're going to do a half double crochet in the first stitch, and then we're going to take our stitch marker from the opposite end and transfer it to our first stitch right here. Now instead of increasing in that same stitch, we're going to increase in the next stitch. So insert 2 half double crochets into the second stitch. And we're going to repeat this pattern of 1 normal half double crochet, 1 increase, 1 normal, and then 1 increase until we reach the end. So now that we have reached the end, we're going to change to our yarn A. So just like we did before, we're going to repeat what we did for our yarn B, which is 1 half double crochet, an increase, 1 half double crochet, an increase until we reach the stitch marker right here. So that is the end of round 2, and again we're going to switch back to our yarn B. So for round 3 we're going to do 2 regular half double crochets and then 1 increase. So in the first stitch you're just going to do a regular half double crochet, and again you're going to transfer your stitch marker to the first stitch, and please keep in mind that this stitch marker is always going to be on your color B. So like I said, we're going to do 2 regular half double crochets. So in the second stitch, you're just going to do another single half double crochet. And in the third stitch, you're going to increase by inserting 2 half double crochets in the same stitch. Now repeat this pattern of 2 regular, 1 increase until you reach the end of the row. Once you finish, change colors. And repeat the same thing for yarn A. That is the end of round 3. Now for round 4, we're going to do 3 half double crochets and then 1 increase. So again, insert a regular half double crochet in the first stitch and transfer your stitch marker. In the second and third stitch, do regular half double crochets. And in the fourth stitch, increase. Repeat this pattern 3 more times. Switch to your color A. And repeat the previous pattern until you reach your stitch marker. Now we're ready to do our 5th round, and you probably recognize the pattern here. So we're going to do 4 regular half double crochets and then an increase in the 5th one, and half double crochet in the first stitch, transfer your stitch marker, half double crochet in the second, third, and fourth stitches, and in the 5th stitch do 2 half double crochets. Repeat until you reach the end. And once you change colors, do exactly what you did until you reach the stitch marker. So I'm going to stop at my 5th row. However, if you desire a wider length, then what you're going to do is for the next row, you're just going to increase the amount of regular half double crochets by 1. So for example, we just did 4 regular half double crochets and then 1 increase. So for the next one, you would do 5, and then the next one, 6, 7, 8, so on, until you reach the desired width. I found that 5 rounds was perfect for my particular hand warmer, and so I'm going to stop here. So take your stitch marker off, and you're just going to do a single crochet into the next stitch, and then slip stitch into the next stitch, and then chain 1 and fasten off. Do the same thing for the other color. So single crochet in the next stitch, slip stitch, chain 1, and fasten off. Now repeat this process one more time so that you have 2 of these pieces. So once you have your two spiral pieces, make sure to orient them so that they are wider horizontally than vertically. Now it is time to attach these pieces to our ribbing. So you'll probably notice that the spiral is more curved than a rectangle shape, which is why we're going to need our two stitch markers. So take your spiral and your ribbing and kind of line them up like this, and you're going to find where it lines up with the ribbing basically so that it forms a rectangular shape. And you're basically going to mark the spiral in the area where it is going to touch the ribbing. And so, for example, since it is curved, I want it to be more of a corner like this. And so I marked it here because if I stitch it together right here, it's going to pull it downwards and form a corner. And so for the other side as well, I'm going to make an estimate, and I'm going to say maybe around here. If I stitch these two ends together, it's going to pull it down and form a corner like a rectangle. And so once you are done marking your stitch, you're going to take your hook and also your yarn A. You could also use yarn B, but I decided that white will probably look best. And so insert a slip knot into your hook. Now take your spiral and make sure that the stitch marker is facing the bottom, and you're going to flip your spiral upside down so that it's overlapping the ribbing like this. And you're basically going to do single crochets all along the ribbing and the spiral to connect it together. So you're going to line it up like this and insert your hook into the spiral where the stitch marker is. So I would recommend probably taking it out, inserting your hook, and then find the end of the ribbing and insert your hook into that area. You'll notice that there are no formal stitches. For example, how there's loops here where there's designated places for you to stitch. And so I recommend just inserting your hook wherever there seems to be space for a stitch. And so you're just going to slip stitch, so yarn over and pull through to attach the yarn to your work, and kind of pull on the tail a little bit. Chain one, and we're going to single crochet along the edge. And so into that same stitch, you're just going to single crochet, now repeat single crocheting until you reach the end of your stitch marker, and make sure that your stitches line up and that by the end of the stitch marker you are at the left edge of your ribbing. So I've reached the end of my stitch marker, and this is what your work should look like. Now it's time to attach your second spiral, and so mark the stitches in the same way as we did for the first one. And now you're going to do the same thing with the second spiral, and so overlap it with your ribbing, and you should have a loop on your hook, and you're going to continue this single crochet connecting method. And you're just going to start directly on the second spiral. And so you're just going to remove your stitch marker. Into that same stitch, insert your hook. And then insert it into your ribbing. And start single crocheting along the edge of the second spiral. So once you're finished with your last stitch, you're going to find the first single crochet from your first spiral, and into that stitch you're going to slip stitch in order to connect the row together. So the next step is to actually single crochet these two ends of the spiral together. And so sandwich these two ends together And you're basically just going to insert your hook into the first stitch here and also on the other side. Just like we've done to connect the ribbing and the spiral together, just single crochet along the front and back panels. And you're going to repeat this until you reach the corner. And once you reach the corner of the work, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but because like I said, it's a curved shape, you're just going to chain one and fasten off. Now flip your work inside out so that the right side is facing the outside again. And at this point, you're going to try on your wrist warmer. Now the next step is to take your 2 stitch markers and use it to determine where you want the hole for your thumb to be, and I recommend experimenting with a bunch of stitches to find your optimal fit. So I've decided on the gap that I want, and just for reference I decided to leave a gap of 5 stitches, not including the stitch marker. So once you have decided where to place your gap, you're going to flip your work inside out so that the wrong side is facing outward. Now take your hook and whichever yarn you are using to connect your pieces together and attach a slip knot to your hook. We're going to attach these 2 intervals together, and so insert your hook into the end of the first panel along with the end of the second panel, and you're going to slip stitch in order to connect the yarn to your work. Now I'm just going to chain 1 and single crochet in that exact same spot, and then single crochet until I reach the stitch marker. And I decided that I was going to include whichever stitches included the stitch marker, so I'm just going to remove my stitch marker, and into the stitches just single crochet like we've been doing, and then chain 1 and fasten off. Now repeat this process for the top portion as well. And on this side, I'm just going to start at the stitch marker, and so take note of where the stitches are marked and remove your stitch marker. And insert your hook into the stitches with a slip knot on your hook. Now slip knot to attach your yarn to your work. Chain 1 and single crochet until you reach the end. Chain 1 and fasten off. Now flip your work inside out again so that the right side is facing outward. So now we've finished basically the foundation of our hand warmer, and all that's left is to do these edges here. So take your yarn A or whichever yarn you use for your ribbing and attach a slip knot to your hook. Take your hook and insert it near the end of your work, right here, and slip knot to attach the yarn to your work. Now chain 1 and single crochet into the same stitch. Keep single crocheting all along the top until you reach this edge seam here. So once you get to this point, I recommend setting aside 3 stitches, one which counts as the seam and then one from each side. And so from the first stitch, which is part of the first panel, you're just going to half double crochet. In the middle stitch, you're going to double crochet. And in the next stitch, you're going to half double crochet. And the reason why we're doing this is because the work is kind of curved, as you can see. And so it kind of helps to even it out a little bit. So continue working your single crochet until you reach near the end of your seam. Once you get to this point, again, you're just going to half double crochet on the right side, double crochet on the seam, and half double crochet on the final stitch. Now locate your first single crochet that you did and slip stitch into that stitch. Now chain 1. You're going to work 1 row of regular single crochet along the top of your work. Now once you reach your last stitch, you're not going to yarn over and complete the stitch. Instead, you're going to leave the 2 loops on your hook. And the reason why is because we're going to change colors to our second color and just do this top border here. And so take your other color, form a slip knot, and put it on your hook. And you're going to pull it through the 2 loops like so. Now with this loop, you're going to slip stitch into the first single crochet of the row. And now is a good time to cut off your first color yarn. And I recommend double knotting the 2 ends together. Now chain 1 and work a final row of single crochet all along the top of your work. After your last stitch, slip stitch into the first single crochet of the row, chain 1 and fasten off. Now the last and final step is to do the same thing, do a row of single crochet except all along the bottom. And so like we've been doing, you're just going to insert a slip knot to your hook, slip stitch into basically any stitch on the bottom. You're going to chain 1 and do a row of single crochet. And once you reach the beginning, you're going to slip stitch into the first stitch, chain 1 and fasten off. Now it is time for my least favorite part of every crochet project, which is to take your darning needle and weave in all the loose ends to the inside of your work. So that is it for the tutorial for these adorable hand warmers. And if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this. And don't forget to tag me if you ever do make these hand warmers.